Now, I didn't have this on my bingo card this season, and I'm very intrigued to see your thoughts. This is today's Arsenal News Show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is indeed the Arsenal News Show. Joining you every single morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Thank you so much as always for joining me and making this a part of your morning routines. Hope you're doing good. Hope you're doing well. Hope your week has been good and prosperous so far. It's only Tuesday, but it is only a couple of days away until Arsenal are next involved in their next Premier League fixture, which they'll be travelling to Brentford, looking to maintain that gap to Manchester City, or perhaps maybe in extending it if Premier League fixtures go their way, which, being honest, they haven't been doing that for us as much as maybe we would have wanted to over the last few days. And we talked plenty about Manchester City's win over Liverpool at Anfield in yesterday's show. And we're going to move the conversation forward now and start looking ahead, of course, and getting some thoughts from the manager as well, who's conducted one of probably his best interviews ever. And there's been some good, there's been some bad. This is definitely one of the good. So we're going to be looking into that. Good morning to those joining us live in the chat box. Thank you so much, as always, for doing so. Greatly appreciate you being here. Martin, Sid, we've got Spam and Steve in the chat box. We've got Natty, Tom, Glenn, Pat. We've got John and Mandy. We've got Claire. We've got Rowan and Arasilki, Barry and Gary. Matt G, Maximius, Carl, Beanie Bun. Good morning to you all. Shari. Morgie in the chat box. Jam, good morning to you all. Thank you so much for listening and tuning in. Greatly appreciate you all listening. If you could drop a like, subscribe, and of course turn those notifications on so you never miss a show, that would be greatly appreciated indeed. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get into today's stories and go through all of them with you, and then we'll go into part two shortly, where we'll be tackling your questions and your thoughts and feelings and plenty more on the side as well. So yes, this has to be, I think, certainly one of Mikel Arteta's, if not is his best interview so far. And, you know, the interviewee is naturally the focus of any interview, but the interviewer is always worthy of plenty of credit. And that comes from Winchmore Hill FC's amateur head coach, Alex Lodge, who spoke on behalf of TNT Sports to Mikel Arteta. It was kind of an amateur coach, Premier League coach dynamic, and how would that kind of set up an interview. If you want to go and watch the full interview, you can do so. TNT Sports have posted it on their X feed. But I just wanted to read you an excerpt from that interview where Alex asks Mikel what his biggest mistakes have been. What were the mistakes that he experienced as a manager when he was kind of first at the club? And Arteta said a lot, but one is where you put the focus sometimes, and especially at the beginning, probably the focus was too much on the tactical aspects. And that means maybe you overload them with information. And then how important is that emotional part at the end when a player is not executing? Why is he not executing? He's not capable of doing it. You're asking him to do something that he cannot do, or he has certain fears or doubts or not enough clarity why he's doing certain things. And providing that to the player is the most important thing, I think. And in order to do that, when you connect and understand how the player reacts better to your demands, that's when you touch the right button. And it's, you know, he doesn't tend to, and I might be wrong, and I'll hold my hands up if I am wrong on this, but I don't get the whole sense that Arteta is one of those that typically in interviews, maybe more so with the press, that tends to kind of open up about the mistakes, the errors, and internally, personally to him in his own coaching managerial time. And so to get this dynamic between a coach and another coach, I think is what got that from Mikel during this particular interview. So I think it was interesting. The overloading on a tactical aspect actually links back to things that we would talk about. I remember doing the shows back in 2019, 2020, 21, and we'd talk about, is he overcoaching players? Not overtraining them. There's a difference. And I don't want you to get the misconception that Arteta is talking about training players too much and there being too many training sessions and that leading to injuries and that whole chaotic theory. That's not what's being talked about here. The overloading is being talked about, this idea of kind of the tactical element of the game and the expectations on players that just do not align with what those players can give you. And I think that we have seen over time, not only his managerial style or his coaching style change, But I think when you look at the way in which the players have changed in themselves as well, and you look at the style of players, I look at the left back position in particular. I think the left back position is probably the best example of where we have tried to force players who aren't necessarily uh, of a certain nature to try and play a certain way, and it's just not worked. And I think Kieran Tierney is an excellent example of that, where we've asked Kieran Tierney to invert, and he's not done that well when he's done that. And as a result, Arsenal went out and bought Alexander Zinchenko, first of all, who was better at doing that. But I think Arsenal have taken that position to a new height with not just Ricardo Calafiori, who is the obvious example, but obviously Pierre Nketiah as well, who can also play as kind of the inverted player, but also play more traditionally. And it gives us plenty of options. I think when you look at the defensive midfield position, Mikel Arteta recognised that Arsenal needed to bring in a player that was going to step up that level in the number 6 role. And Thomas Partey, of course, did that during that period of time, bringing that player in that we had not had really since Gilberto Silva really left the club. You know, players like Alex Song had stepped into that role to a degree, Lucas Torreira for a small period, but Arsenal never really got the top level player in that role, and that's why Arsenal went out and signed Thomas Partey. But this summer, have taken that to an even higher level, of course, with the signing of Martin Zubimendi, who pretty much encapsulates everything that Arteta wants. He wants a player that can provide defensive security, can read the game exceptionally well in that defensive third, but equally can push the ball forwards, can progress the play, and can score goals. And we're seeing that. You know, Zubimendi scored 6 goals this season, more than he's ever scored in any of his seasons previous to this one. So we see it there. I think you see it with Declan Rice to an extent as well, in the way that he has changed and the way he is kind of enabled to be more free. But there are other players who I think that maybe still Arteta needs to learn a little bit more about how to get the most from. I mean, obviously, who am I to say Arteta can do X, Y, Z better? But what I would say is, I think if there's one player that just needs to be given that freedom, and that player for me is Eberechi Eze. I think that Eberechi Eze is probably still being slightly over. I don't necessarily overcoached is the right term, but I think he's being given too much instruction almost. I can't help but feel that way, and I feel as though that Eze needs to be given freedom. And I think that you give Eze freedom not by just taking away responsibilities from him, but in some ways getting others around him to do slightly more and to kind of make up for Eze's shortcomings. Now, Eze's shortcomings are the energy in terms of your tracking back, your position, all of those things. I think the more freedom you can give Eberechi Eze, the more that we will get from him. I don't know if that's going to happen, because I don't know if you can necessarily have that type of player. And Mike, you misunderstand me. I'm not talking about a passenger. That's not what I'm talking about at all. You still have to put in a certain level of effort and tracking back and pressing and all of those things. But I think what you need to do is give Eze less instruction to get more from him. So don't misunderstand what I'm saying here. It's not about him becoming a passenger. It's about giving him the freedom, giving him the license to have more of an influence on the game in a more instinctual way. But I may be completely misinterpreting, the instructions that he's been given. I'm purely going off of what I've saw from him this season in a very meticulously coached system, less so than it was 4 years ago, obviously, from the way that Arteta is telling us. But I'm just talking about this idea that he needs to be given less responsibility, weirdly, and given more of a license to create and be free. Whereas I think other players really benefit from instruction, like Calafiori, like Zubimendi, like Jurriën Timber, like Declan Rice, like hopefully Victor Gyökeres to a degree as well. But I think players like Ødegaard was another example. But Eze is a player I think that needs to be given more license if we're going to get best from him. It may not ever work. I'd probably argue of all of the signings made this season that have played a considerable number of minutes, Eze's probably been the most disappointing of those, despite the fact he scored a hat-trick in a North London derby, which was brilliant, and scored against his former club, Crystal Palace. Of the signings we've made, Mosquera has really impressed me. obvious. These are men he's been our signing of the summer. Gyökeres is starting to turn things around more recently. I think maybe Madueke's close with Eza as well. I think Madueke could have done more, and I want to see more from Madueke as well. And Cappy, I think, has improved considerably over the last 6 months as well. And obviously, he started the season with an injury, which somewhat limits that. But I had such high expectations of Eza, and I do think that it's not all his fault. But I do think there is something that I want more from him, and I think that him going from a very free, talismanic role at Palace to the role that he's got now at Arsenal is a big change, and that needs to still be given some time to adapt. But I want more, and that's just me being greedy and selfish, obviously. But I want more, and a player, of course, that comes in the mid to late 20s, similar to the energy that I've had with Gyökeres. You don't get free hits. You need to kind of hit the ground running and deliver in your first season. No judgments, of course, till the end of the season as we keep that consistent. But you know what I'm saying, and you know how much I desperately wanted to see Eberechi Eza arrive at Arsenal. So I'm hoping that he will improve and that we'll see more from him. Mikel Merino has indeed now had surgery on that foot injury. There's a few things on this. I broke the story yesterday, kind of more so around the some of the details of the recovery. My understanding is that he will go through a period now where, for as long as about 8 weeks, he won't be able to put any strenuous weight on that broken foot. But the hope is that maybe by late April, he could, after, if everything goes to plan, be starting to do some running. And then by just before the end of the season, the hope is that maybe he will be able to return. So I know some suggested that his season is done. If everything goes to plan, if everything goes along the process, then obviously things can change, setbacks can happen, things do not recover necessarily as you might predict that they do. So it's always a very volatile thing reporting around the timeline of player injuries and how they might return. So bear that in mind. But if all goes well, we may still see Mikel Merino before the end of the season, similar to kind of the Havertz situation last season where he came back for that final game or two. But expecting Mikel Merino to have any real impact between now and the end of the season is probably unlikely, and not really of an expectation. But we wish him all the best, Mikel. What an injury, what a rare injury he suffered. I mean, if you look at the picture that he uploaded, and I'm actually surprised that this is the picture that we got. And the reason why I say that is because you can see where the injury is. You can see where the bandage is. And when you think of a foot injury or if you've broken a bone in your foot, I think most of us would instinctually think, oh, he must have broken like a metatarsal, or it is metatarsal, right? It's metacarpals in your hand, metatarsals in your feet, right? Something like that, a metatarsal issue or a toe issue or something like that you've broken like a bone in your foot. But the bandage that you can see on his foot obviously is not covering the end of his foot. The bandage is covering kind of the big block like over the heel and at the top part of the foot as well. And that's a really bizarre area to get a fracture. Like and I can't really speculate. I don't know the details of the injury, but that is one of the hardest bones in your body, is that area of your foot, only second probably to your skull. So the idea of that fracturing, that's such a rare and strange and bizarre. Arteta called it a rare injury. So I don't know why. I don't know if it's like a stress fracture. I don't know if it's an impact injury. We don't know. We have no information about the specifics of how it happened, what it is, other than that it is a fracture of the foot. And you can see by the location of the bandage in the image. If you're listening to this on audio platforms, I can only describe it to you as that the bandage is not covering the end of his foot. You can still see his toes and everything, but the bandage kind of rides up to his ankle sort of area as well. And it's probably 6-7 inches long, the bandage. So yeah, it's very difficult to determine how, why, what. But very bizarre injury indeed. It still could be metatarsal, people are saying. So maybe it could be that. But I just feel like it's still so high up that I just can't see. I'm just getting up an image now of kind of a foot and all the labels of where all the bones are. So your metatarsals are like the parts of the foot before the phalanges, the toes, if you like. So yeah, it could be there, but it looks like more to be further up the foot than even that. So yeah, could be that. Could be more towards his heel. Who knows? Bizarre. Just one quick thing before we go to part two. I wrote a piece which you can read more so in detail, where I went into more of kind of the understanding around the percentages and the Opta predictions and why Opta have got this algorithm that has given City barely an additional push when it comes to their hopes of winning the title. If you're starting to panic, if you need a little bit of calming down, this article might be for you. But the supercomputer of Opta has suggested, or did suggest before the game against between Liverpool and Manchester City, that Man City's chances of winning the title were just 4.55%. That was before they beat Liverpool. Now, if you were to take a guess of what that chance had increased by after they beat Liverpool in surprising circumstances, I think you'd probably assume that it would go up by more than 3.6, because it's only up to 8.15% now, which is mad, really, to think that they've gone to Anfield, won, and their chances of winning the title have gone from 4.55% to 8.15%, whereas Arsenal's chances went from 93.64% only down to 90.14%, according to Opta Supercomputer. So it is kind of nuts, really, to think about how little that has changed. I think one of the reasons why that has changed not so drastically is if you think about the teams that Arsenal have played already and the teams that Arsenal have yet to face. Obviously, they only have to leave London 3 more times in the league season: Wolves and Man City. And then on Thursday, of course, this week we go to Brentford. But it's just Wolves, Brighton, and Man City, the only 3 times we do leave London in the domestic side of the competitions, other than, of course, if we get anyone away in the FA Cup further rounds. But then if you look at also the teams that we have played, of the top 10 sides, they have played 8 of them so far, Arsenal. And when you look at the number of teams that they still have to play, 8 of them have been away from home. The only 2 that they've got to play away from home that are in the top 10 are Manchester City and Brentford. They're the only teams that Arsenal have left to play. City have 3 of the top 10 to play away from home. But you look at the positions of some of the teams. Arsenal have played 3rd placed Aston Villa twice. They've played 4th placed Man United twice. They've played 6th placed Liverpool twice. And they've played 9th placed Sunderland twice as well. So we'll not be playing any of those teams again. City, on the other hand, have still got to play Chelsea away, Everton away, Brentford at home, Villa at home, and 11th placed Bournemouth away from home as well as also having to host Arsenal at the Etihad. And I think all those kind of elements are the reasons as to why the prediction models have exactly what we are expecting at the moment with the predictions from Opta right now. So, yeah, Arsenal 6 points clear, as we know, but there's a long way to go. We still have to play Chelsea at home. We still have to play Spurs, of course, away. We've still got some difficult games. We've still got to play Everton at home. We've still got to play Fulham at home. But we've played, 8 of the top 10 teams away from home this season already. So that bodes well for Arsenal. So, and of course, the opportunity to win at City is a big one for Arsenal as well. Right, let's go to your questions in part 2 right after this. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is our part 2 of the show, where we go into the chat box and tackle some of your questions. So if indeed you've got any questions you'd like to throw in, now is the time to do that. So use a capital Q, it helps them stand out, and I'll do my absolute best to go through as many of them as I can and answer as many of them as I can in the best way that I can. No promises that I can answer them all, but I will do my best to try and answer as many of them as possible. Tony says, oh, good. No need to worry. Opta says we're winning the league. I'm such a silly man to have had any worries whatsoever. Well, Tony, I'm glad that you're finally starting to come around. Mickey says, are we counting Brighton and the Amex as London? No, of course not. No, they are outside of London. It's Brighton, Wolves, and City are our 3 games outside of London between now and the end of the season in the Premier League. But we play them pretty close. So we've got obviously Wolves next week. So that will go down to 3. And then we've got Brighton on March 4th. So in a month's time, Arsenal will only have to leave London once in the Premier League. How mad is that? That is mad. After the 4th of March, Arsenal will leave London in the Premier League one more time. That's kind of crazy, really, when you think about it. And you think about previous seasons where we've had some really tricky away fixtures at the end of seasons that have really hurt us. So yeah, let's hope that we can make that worth our while. Let's go to OG says, if we win the league, how would you celebrate? I'll let you know if we win the league. I'm not getting into any of that. I'm not getting into any parade stuff. What happens if we win the league? We got to win it first, and then we'll talk about that sort of thing. I don't want to tempt fate. Roy says, metatarsal, they do get broken. Remember, Beckham, Rooney, and Neymar. It's probably the severity of the injury that's causing the length of time that Merino is perhaps out. Mark says, does it appear that Arteta is still learning his team and experimenting with groups of players to deploy for specific circumstances, specific goals, or specific competitions? Arteta will say and probably admit to you that he's learning every game. He's learning every single fixture. There isn't a game that goes by that he does not try to learn something. And so that'll be partnerships, that'll be opposition matchups, that'll be rotation. He's never had a squad like this before. He's never had a squad this big. So the idea that he wouldn't be learning, at this stage would be farcical, because of course he is still learning. And of course he's going to be learning every game. Sean says, Tom, stop stressing. Even if we go only 1 point clear, we ain't losing this title to City. This is their second win in 2026, and you expect me to be scared? I wish I was as confident as you, Sean. I really do. Ken says, about Eza, do you think Mikel wants to make him understand the system and what the positions are expected to do before giving him more of a free role? No, I don't think. I think he just wants him to learn the system, wants him to operate in the same way that he expects all of his players to operate. And I don't necessarily know if that is the best way to get the most from Eza. But I could well be proven wrong. Beanie Bun says, Tom, do you think the Liverpool game could well just be the equivalent of Arsenal's Bournemouth comeback, or even that infamous 2-1 against Leicester in seasons of yore? They remain flawed. It's interesting comparison, isn't it? Obviously, Arsenal beat that Leicester side in the last minute, didn't go on to win the title. We fixate on moments when really, if you look at bigger pictures, they give you the best idea of what to expect. And City have won just 2 of their last 7 league games. I'll say that again. City have won just 2 of their last 7 league games. So I'm not yet getting into I don't know about this. Prior to that, they did win 6 in a row. So we do know they're capable of winning, in good runs, and they really did build the pressure up in that December period. But this year for 2026 has not been a good year so far for City in the league. Jim says, would you prefer Alvarez or Rodgers in the summer if it will be the option to get one of them? Wow, that's hard, isn't it? I've always kind of looked at Julian Alvarez to be probably the best centre forward on the market. I think is probably Julian Alvarez. The likelihood that Arsenal could land anyone, the best version of that is probably Julian Alvarez. So I lean towards him. But Morgan Rodgers would be a great signing. He would be a great signing. I guess with Jesus leaving, we expect probably you have Havertz and Gyökeres. Whereas if Alvarez makes that 3, Rodgers comes in, you've already got Ødegaard, Eza, Waneri to come back. Daumann is seen as more of a central player for the future. Add Rodgers and a 5th player to that kind of area. Kai can play that role too. So you'd argue, I think the centre forward is maybe still more pressing than the 10 or the attacking midfield, arguably. Alagoke says, how many points do you think Arsenal will get in the next 3 away games? 9, mate. I'm going 9, 100%. Eva says, on Eza, I disagree. I think the better he understands the expectations on him, the freer maybe he can express himself. Potentially. Very potentially. It's purely theory at the moment. Chano says, Tom, what do you think of the mainstream media narrative of City crawling back to the points to a gap of 4 or less and potentially beating us at the Etihad? I mean, we can still beat. It's within their interest to do that. They want to try and generate a title race interest. They want to generate a swell of noise and expectation and hype. So it's within their interest to want City to close the gap so it keeps things interesting, keeps people engaged. So don't fall for it. Arthur says, hi, Tom. Is it true that we might be playing City twice in the week starting from March 22nd? Well, Arsenal will play City in the Carabao Cup final on March 22nd. They then will play them in the league on April 18th. However, if Man City are to draw Arsenal in that bracket, for the Champions League quarterfinals and both teams make it to that stage of the competition, if they Arsenal get past either one of Bayer Leverkusen, Borussia Dortmund, Olympiacos, or Atalanta, then they could potentially play City 4 times in the space of just like a single month or just over a month. So, yeah, could be interesting. Could be very, very interesting. D says, after Ezra's hat-trick in the North London derby, who do you think is the player most likely to score or come close to scoring a hat-trick in the next North London derby? Probably Victor right now, right? I mean, 8 goal contributions in 8 games. You know, he's probably the most informed goal scorer right now. So I'd have to say Victor. And I say it with pleasure. Just know that I say it with absolute pleasure and happiness in my heart. I really do. D says it will take time for Ezra to learn and apply such a complex philosophy after not playing with one like this before, and he will be dynamite for us next season. John says, what are your thoughts on what Eni has said about Eni Aluko and what she has said about Ian Wright? I found it really disheartening, to be really honest with you. I very much respected Ian Wright's decision to reject the apology 9 months ago. I think what the work that Ian Wright has done for the women's game has been next to unrivaled from a male perspective. And as he talks about, if you go back, and I did go back and actually watch the video that he put out 9 months ago, he makes the really important point that it was men that banned women from playing football for like 50 years. So it is also within our responsibility to do everything within our power to big up, to talk about, to raise up the women's game. And you will struggle to find a man that has done that more than Tim Stillman. No, than Ian Wright. Tim Stillman has done his fair shout as well. But Ian Wright, I think, has become something of an iconic figure in bigging up the women's games. I'm really disappointed by Eni Aluko's comments. I empathize with the frustration that's clearly there. But I think she's made some errors in what she said. As I say, I empathize with some levels of her frustration, but I don't think that. I think if you start to say things like only women should be able to be pundits for women's games, you start to close the door to some really great pundits who are women to be pundits in the men's game. Like, I remember watching, I think it was the 2018 Russia World Cup. I think Emma Hayes was a pundit for that. I think it was that World Cup. Let me double check that just so I'm right. But Emma Hayes was a pundit for one of the international tournaments. I can't exactly remember. Maybe it was Euro 2020. And actually, if you go on, yes, I think it was Euro 2020. And if you go onto the Chelsea website, there's an article written. Chelsea then women's manager Emma Hayes is revealed as one of the UK's favourite pundits, according to new research. So Hayes is currently working for ITV at the Euros and has been sharing her elite football knowledge on match days, gaining further popularity with viewers. And according to a Twitter analysis through OLBG's commentator rankings, Emma Hayes was revealed to be one of the favourites out of the 28 pundits that were studied. And I just think that if you gatekeep specific, genders for specific gender sports, I just don't think that's the best way to do it. So that's kind of my opinion on it. I don't agree with Eni Aluko in that sense at all. I empathize with some frustrations that she has, but I think she's going about it the wrong way, in my opinion. And to have spoken the way that she spoke about Ian Wright, who has done so much for the women's game, I just can't get on board with. And I struggle to get on board with that. Let's go to Culture Mark. Says, Tom, if Tottenham get relegated, will you miss the North London derby or will you be wishing them well in the Championship? If they get relegated, they can stay there. There's part of me that's like, I don't necessarily want Spurs to get relegated because I enjoy the North London derby, but there's also the idea that them going down is one of the funniest things ever. So, that's I do think that's worth pointing out. Ali says, Tom, do you consider Trossard's recent form a concern? Should Arteta try Ezra on the left? No. Trossard was one of our best players in our last game. He was excellent against Sunderland. Really, really good. So, no, I don't consider his form to be a concern. And he says, we are 6 points in front. We can afford to lose one game and draw one game and still be 2 points in front. So worst case scenario, still nothing to worry about. Mark says, have you looked over City's remaining fixtures? Apart from Arsenal, Chelsea and Brentford and Villa, their run-in looks pretty comfortable. Does it? I don't think it necessarily does look as comfortable as you're making out. I think actually their fixtures are tougher. I think on paper you're forgetting the form of some of the teams. Their next few games, definitely so. But I mean, Fulham, top 10 side, they've still got to play. They've got to play Newcastle, who, Newcastle haven't been great this season. Leeds away. Leeds are a side that have put 3 goals past Chelsea, 3 goals past Liverpool this season at Elland Road. It was only Arsenal that managed to keep a clean sheet and win there. I think we were only something like the 3rd team this season to win at Elland Road. West Ham are in a better state of form and they've got to go there and they're scrapping for points, as are Nottingham Forest. I don't expect them to have a problem against Palace at home. Chelsea away, Chelsea are desperate for points and have got a decent record at times against City. Of course, they've still got to play us. They've got to go to Burnley, which Burnley can surprise teams. You never know. They've got to go to Everton, of course, who are currently a top 10 side as well. They've still got to play Brentford, who currently are having an excellent season. And also Brentford have got a pretty decent record in recent times against Man City, I believe, as well. I think they beat them twice in a single season not so long ago. Bournemouth away from home as well. That's not necessarily kind of a given, and it could be something of kind of a nothing to play for type game for Bournemouth, which might in some ways, like I think of Newcastle against Arsenal a few years ago, might inspire them to a degree. And then they've got Aston Villa on the final game of the season, and Aston Villa could still be in a battle for Champions League. So I don't think it is as straightforward as you're making out at all. Mark, we've kind of touched on that already. Let's go. Dragan says, replaying City 4 times. Do you think that could actually be a disadvantage? Those games have been very tactical in the past. And when so close together, Pep could use previous matches as a reference. It feels harder to be truly varied in your approach and easier for the opponent to read you. Honestly, mate, I have no idea. I think there's arguments on both sides. I think you could definitely argue that it's a disadvantage. I think absolutely you could argue that playing them so often, if you get the first win, it could snowball and absolutely hammer their mentality and make them more fearful of you. So I think it probably depends on that first game, and that cup final is, I think, going to be the first game. So yeah, that cup final has got loads of narrative attached to it. So much narrative. Trinita says, my love for variety, growing from a boy to a man, from stud in the ear to a real man and knows the right words to say every time. I can't quantify how much I love him. He's a proper gunner. Yeah, look, he's just a lovely bloke here, right? He just is just a lovely guy. So much time for so many people. And I just can't understand why on earth he became the target. I really, really don't. Sam says, how often does a supercomputer get his predictions wrong? I don't know. No idea. It changes. The model changes throughout the course of the season. So it changes based upon results. It's a constantly changing algorithm. So I guess neither, because it just constantly changes. But yeah, I don't know. Paul says City has a problem with consistency, and that's been obvious from their yo-yoing results. And a team that is yo-yoing in their results doesn't tend to go on to win a Premier League title. And says, I'm lucky to be old enough to remember Tottenham being relegated in 77. I bet that was very enjoyable. I just can't imagine it happening. I really can't. Mr. Chillhouse says, do you think that the cup final could decide the league? It absolutely could. If the gap is quite close going into that final, and I think it needs to be at least 6 points, even before Arsenal go to them in the league, I think it needs to be at least 6 points. That psychological element of winning that league could be massive, for Arsenal. Could be absolutely massive for Arsenal. So, yeah, certainly it could be a real decider for the Premier League, 100%. Adigoke says, should Gyökeres be a regular starter? I think he is a regular starter, isn't he? Given that he's more effective off the bench and struggles against low block defenses and hasn't clearly outperformed Jesus, who has also struggled as a starter. Thing is, yeah, look, 2 goals off the bench the other day, came off the bench and scored against Inter Milan, but started against Leeds and scored a good goal. Jesus comes off the bench, scores in that game, scores a really good goal. I think both of them have their merits. Both of them have they're both different keys for different locks. I think that both of them can be assets for us between now and end of the season, certainly. But I think Gyökeres has earned the right to start. I kind of want to see him start more with Kai, and I want that relationship to develop a bit more as well. I think it can create some real problems for opposition sides, especially those that tend to try and be really physical. So I think Gyökeres is the starter at the moment. But No one position is ever set in stone. Sam says, did you see Tomiyasu inferring that Arteta was overly focused on tactics early on when he mentioned about the squad only understanding what he wanted in the second season? No, I didn't. I haven't seen that. But it seems that Arteta has openly admitted that he kind of in the early days has been overly tacticked the team, and he's doing that a lot less now. And that's, it's a learning process, isn't it? It shows that we've got a manager that's open to change, that doesn't stubbornly stick. Like you think about Ange Postecoglou, you think about Ruben Amorim. These are managers that have stubbornly stuck to their philosophies, to their way of football, the way of life with the team, the way they want to coach the teams. Arteta's not in that category, and it's no surprise he's still here, and it's no surprise that his team have every single season taken another step forwards towards their ultimate goal. Ben D'Agostino says, do you think Odegaard is going to have a hard time getting into the side now that Havertz is fit? It's no coincidence that our shape has been so much more solid with Havertz. He's going to have a hard time. Yeah, he's going to have a really hard time. Havertz is doing excellently. Alpha says, if we win the Carabao Cup, that's a psychological blow for City. If we lose, we learn from it and not make the same mistake again at the Etihad. Matt says, do you know if any of the players watch your channel or any other YouTube channels? No. I know that they absolutely get exposed to kind of like clips and things like that, and opinions online. Sure, when things go viral, it's hard for them to stay away from it. But I have no idea if any of them tune in here. But if you do, keep smashing it. Please win us the title. I beg. Mikey says, Declan has seemed to have blossomed since United, as others have too. Helicopter says, Odegaard can play well, just not on a consistent basis. He was unbelievable against Leeds. And I think that is in part due to the interruptions he's had this season. The 4 injuries now he has suffered this season have really interrupted his flow, his rhythm, and he's not really been able to get to the level that I think we know that he is capable of getting to. But you look at Kai now, he's playing regularly and consistently. I think that's having a really big benefit on his return to form. Whereas Odegaard comes back in, smashes it immediately, 3-goal contribution in 3 games, and then the form of the team kind of wobbles and that rhythm is then lost. Don't spam the chat. You don't get your questions answered if you spam the chat. Liam says, talking about Eza, did you see the fantastic run through nearly the entire Sunderland team? Just fantastic. Yeah, he looked sharper when he came off the bench the other day. It wasn't like an amazing performance, but he looked sharper. And that's encouraging. He'll start on Saturday against Wigan. I have no doubt about that. So that's another game for him to get another opportunity to try and show what he is all about. Mark says, with Havertz and Gyökeres both playing, might we revert to a 4-4-1-1 with Havertz playing behind Gyökeres? I think that's pretty much kind of what we're seeing, Mark, at the moment. We're kind of seeing Havertz play with him and quite close to him. So, yeah, I think that's very much what we're starting to see. John says, did you see what Merson said about Odegaard not being a 10 due to him being more of a right side player? And what are your thoughts, therefore, on that? He also mentioned players not trusting Gyökeres. I think there's definitely been times where the players could have passed to Victor and haven't necessarily done that. I think we've seen plenty of examples of that now. And it is a mental thing. I didn't think it was happening at the start, but over the course of the season, I think we've seen it happen more. And I think that comes from the fact that there are times, obviously, at the start, the first 6 months of his time with Arsenal were a challenge. And, he wasn't necessarily showing the technical abilities that were needed. He wasn't showing the level required. But in recent weeks, he's showing that. And maybe he's getting the ball now more as a result of that. And it's always psychological. On Odegaard, we don't really play with a 10, do we? Like, even Havertz now, he's playing more as kind of a second striker than as a 10. We don't play with a Mesut Ozil type player. So, yeah, I think Odegaard has played more towards the right. He isn't playing as a 10. He definitely could if we did play that style, but we don't play with that style. Yeah. Tony says, with Odegaard, maybe it isn't about football. Maybe it's about outside issues with him. Fans never think about that. As far as I'm aware, there isn't any. I know there was always a lot of talk about when he had his first child, and a lot of people kind of talked about how that was affecting things. But as far as I'm aware, from any information I've had, that's not the case. I just think it's been the rhythm affected by injuries this season and the form overall of when he's been available and when he's not been available. So, yeah, I just, his numbers speak for themselves. I mean, as I talked before, he was in the top 3% of shot creating actions for players in the last year, per 90, in terms of all of these creative statistics. He was coming out in the top percentiles of players in Europe's top 5 leagues. So it wasn't like he wasn't playing well. He just wasn't necessarily creating an environment. I think that we could see it so obviously, and that's a team thing as well. But it just the numbers speak for themselves. Mark says, what team would you like to see against Brentford, and what team do you think Arteta will start with? Great stream as always. Well, you're not going to have to tune in, Mark, on Thursday, aren't you? And then we'll do our preview show, and you'll see what lineup I'll go for. But I'll wait to hear from Mikel on Wednesday before making any decisions on what team I'd like to see. Liam says, you are 100% correct about Eza being overcoached. Give him more freedom because he could change the game in a flash. Micah says, I don't think the league is ready for what we are going to deliver from now until May. I'm quite excited for what we're going to see. I think Arteta's words from the last week when he said, we're going to play with courage and conviction. We're going to enjoy it. We're going to have fun. I really do think those players have taken that message. I don't want to say the word grateful because I don't like losing games, but we drew against Liverpool. We drew against Forest, and then we lost to Man United. Every time Arsenal have lost a game this season, they have won the next game. Be that in the league, be that in any competition. We have won the next game. When we lost to Liverpool, we won the next game. When we lost to Villa, we won the next game. When we lost to Man United, we won the next game. I do feel as though sometimes that you can be grateful for a defeat to kind of kick you up the backside and give you a little bit of momentum and a bit of a grounding reality and a bit of a reality check. And I think maybe Arsenal actually benefited more from that United defeat than maybe if they'd just narrowly won it scrappily. And yes, we'd have 3 more points, but maybe the points come the end of the season will be more beneficial based upon having something of a reality check in that game. So, look at the positives. I think Arteta spoke really well about playing with that conviction, that meeting that they said they have. And it's not just like a crisis talk that they never have. They have meetings all the time, but it seemed like a really important point of the season as well. So I think that's really important. Kuhn says Ødegaard will go in for the 50-50 challenges more next season. I think he's lost a little bit of confidence in those moments. That knee injury he suffered against West Ham, I think that definitely has psychologically maybe affected kind of his confidence to go into those types of challenges. So I think that's potentially something that's a fair comment, absolutely. Ansys just wondering if Gabriel starts a match as captain, then Martin comes on as a sub. Does Gabriel pass the armband to him, or does he remain captain for the match? If Martin's ever on the pitch, he has the armband. Even if he comes on, the armband is given to him because he is the club captain. Gabriel started as captain against Leeds. Saka was going to be captain, but then Saka got injured, so the armband then went to Gabby. I think the order is Ødegaard, Saka, Gabby, Rice. I think that's the 4. Then maybe Merino after that. I think that's the 5 in a row. I think there's a couple of other as well. I think David Raya is maybe in the leadership group as well. And I think there's probably one more, maybe Saliba. Maybe Timber, actually. I think Timber could be there. So, yeah, we've got so many leaders in this group now. I remember back in the day, we just didn't have that type of squad, did we? We just didn't have that group. And Capier's worn the armband for Ecuador. These are just like players that have had really big, important roles as well. Any news on Saka? No, not really beyond what's already been reported. There's kind of they're targeting that North London derby, I think, as maybe the game for him to return. So I still think he's going to be out for Brentford and for Wigan and for Wolves. Maybe he comes back for Wolves, but I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Mark says, since the loss to United, it looks as though the squad have taken to heart what Arteta said about playing with more joy. Do you see that? Yes, I think we just kind of touched on that, didn't we? Absolutely. Arthur says, hi, Tom. How can we improve the membership of the TGT family? We should be aiming for 100,000 on the channel. There's nothing you can do, Arthur. I appreciate your kind words. Ultimately, people are free to come and go. I've talked about this before. I know I say at the start of episodes, like the video, subscribe and get 1,000 likes or whatever. But I've always said that, if the channel ever gets to 100K, brilliant. Brilliant. But I think also there's a really important understanding and knowing when you have enough. And I'm really grateful for where we are as a community, where we are as a channel. And, you know, if we hit 70K this year, which I maybe would hope for, then great, you know, but I think it's great. I get to do this every single morning, get to talk to you guys and girls every single day, and I love it. And we get to talk about the games, we get to go to them. And yeah, it's important to understand when you've got enough. Sometimes, you know, if you're chasing something all the time, you can lose sight of what you have. So, yeah, I'm very gracious for what I've got and look forward to continue chatting with you every single day. But if you want to help, you know, share the pod around if you like. You know, tell your friends about it, support the channel, tell people to like the show. Yeah, and keep watching. I love hearing that people have made friends through this channel. I love hearing people that have like stories. I mean, we've got like the Strava group that we were doing for. I mean, the Strava group, by the way, is still active. And people have made friends on there and even gone, I think, for runs together through that Strava app. So, and we haven't done that in a while, but yeah, my word, it's great to see so many people have met up or have met at the live shows that we've done. And I'm hoping to do a live show at the end of the season as well. So keep your eyes peeled. And I'm still working out the specifics of a specific date because the Champions League final is causing a little bit of chaos. And obviously, if Arsenal get there, it's a big kind of week-long thing. So I want to do it at the right time. I want to do it, you know, hopefully maybe celebrating a title, but I'll keep you up to date about when that might happen. So yeah, look, it's brilliant. Love it. And just keep supporting the channel in any way that you think that you can. Alex, thank you so much for joining us. I've assumed it's Alex, but actually it's ZZZ Lax. Thank you, Lax, for joining as a member. Really appreciate your support of the channel and welcome to the TGT family as a member. You can, I think, become a member now on iPhone as well. I think you can do that. I think there's the little join. If you ever wonder what that join button is, it's there, and you can join our Discord server. I'll make sure I put a new link for the Discord in the community or posts tab on the channel homepage after today's show. Matt says, I wasn't subscribed. I'm sorry. I didn't realize. I am now. I think sometimes YouTube unsubscribes people. I always have to remind people, just check that you are actually subscribed to the channel because sometimes YouTube unsubscribes you. It's really strange. It's frustrating because I've had channels that I love to watch and I'll be like, oh, they've not released a video. And then I'd click on the channel and it's unsubscribed me and I've missed like 3 videos. So yeah, please do make sure that you are subbed. And let me know if YouTube's unsubscribed you because it's strange how it works. So this is Tom, my brother confused me. He's a Spurs supporter. He said his second team is Arsenal and he's playing mind games. Yeah, don't fall for those mind games, Tony. CS80 says, opinion on buying players on one good season. Thiago at Brentford springs to mind. It's always a risk, isn't it? There's always a risk associated to it. Always is. And that's why I was less concerned about Gyökeres because he's obviously had 2 seasons, arguably 3 with Coventry as well. It's still taking some time, you know, for him to grow and improve. I saw this as great community. Indeed, it absolutely is. Mark says, I love TGT. It's part of my, it's the best part of my morning. And that's very kind of you to say, indeed. Les says, you should not cut your hair until we win 5 games in a row, or you'll hit 500K in just weeks. Yeah, look, fair play to that guy. He stuck with what he said. You know, he stuck with it. I don't really understand the criticism he's getting. You know, let's just put the shoe on another foot. Like, let's say an Arsenal fan during that period where Arteta was like, we were finishing 8th. If an Arsenal fan said they weren't going to cut their hair for like 5 games, I mean, really? Are people going to criticize that? I know that people are so suspicious and conspiratorial about everything. And they're like, oh, you know, he just wants to promote or benefit off his own team's misery. He did it as a joke and it just turned into something. Like, honestly, people are so serious these days. You just need to lighten up. You really, really do need to lighten up. Just enjoy life, please. It's too short to worry about. CSA says opinion on, yeah, we kind of touched on that. Angie says, still wondering what date I should ask my boss for time off for the bus parade. Yeah, look, if Arsenal keep going through in the Champions League, that would delay any potential parades. But you know, let's cross that bridge when we get there. Tony says, Tom, I've been unsubscribed 4 times, but maybe that was just you, Tony, not liking what I said and, you know, just unsubscribed out of anger. Maybe that was you. Paul says YouTube are a law unto themselves. They really are. It's a mad platform, really. Like, it's what the algorithms and stuff like that and what it promotes and what doesn't promote. But yeah, that's what I said. Just be grateful for what you got. Amira says, respect the commitment, but I need West Ham to do something for me tonight. Yeah, I would appreciate West Ham getting a result, mainly because I've got family, of course, who are big West Ham fans. But still, it's it would be fun just to see that finally come to an end, that run. But still, I don't quite. I'm getting a little bit nervous about how good Man United are starting to look. Barry says, Barry Bryan, is it you who wears home and away shirts together? There is the fan that has like the home and away kit kind of stitched together and the full kit going on. Just let people enjoy themselves. What's wrong with that? Like, just let people. Like, I'm not saying anyone was criticizing that, but I have seen people criticize it, and I'm just like, just let people get on with their lives. Just let people do, what they want within reason, obviously. But he's not hurting anybody, so you're not hurting anyone. What's wrong? Just let people get on with it. Obviously, Darren Bent has a similar bet about United. He's waiting for United to lose before he can cut his hair. Is that true? Oh, interesting. It's gone reverse now. So it says, are supporters taken for granted with the way they hike up the prices for consumers? I like the old model fans had shares in the club. The thing is, though, the ironic thing is, and I know that shares in Arsenal was something very personal, it was something very historic for families. But I'll be very honest with you, I don't think we would be where we are right now in this iteration of the Premier League if we didn't see the ownership fully buy out Arsenal in 2017-18. I really don't think we would be where we are now if they didn't fully buy out the club. So, because we wouldn't have the investment that we have had. We'd still have, I still think we would be kind of just middling around while other teams overtook us and kept spending. So, while I empathise and feel sorry for people who lost that, I think they got bought out, so they would have got a fair chunk of money. I'm pretty sure. I might be wrong, and I apologise if I am, but I'm pretty sure you would have got a fair chunk of money for the shares that you owned if they were bought out. But yeah, look, I think overall, on the balance of it all, I think we've benefited more as a club from that happening. So says, Tom, I respect your opinion. I don't always agree. I'm too old for grudges concerning people's opinions, but hey, you got a response. I've reeled you in there, Tony. I've got you on the hook now. I've got you on that hook. Nifty Legend says, Tom, I've successfully converted the missus from a Spurs fan to an Arsenal fan. She has seen the light. P.S. Don't tell her dad. I was going to ask you, why was she a Spurs fan in the first place? But the fact that she's become that from her family and you've somehow taken that away, I don't even know how I feel about that. I don't know how I feel about that at all. I almost feel like, fair play for, as I say, let people do what they want. But my words, I'd never have a chance of converting any family member, especially not my missus. Stonewall Charlton fan forever. But yeah, I'm not ever going to be able to change that. And to be honest, I don't think I'd want to. It's obviously when one day, who will our kids support? It's going to be painful. That. I'll tell you, the argument is that she reckons that because I'll never be able to take them to games because I'll be working so much, she'll be taking them to the Valley and, her dad as well. Her dad's going to be there with like a Charlton baby grow, ready to just go straight there. Just straight in. But yeah, it's going to be a battle that. It's going to be an interesting battle. Helicopter says, the Cronkies have won trophies in their other sports, even our women's. It's about time that we win some in the men's team too. Yeah, you look at... You look at the trophies that the KSE brand, if you like, and all of the franchises, the clubs that they have under their umbrella. You look at the success of those teams. They're a ownership that want to win. They're ownership that want to win stuff. It's not. People had misconceptions. There's no doubt in my mind. That there was misconceptions about the ownership. And don't you think it's interesting that if you look at Arsenal over the last 16 years, or even the last 19 years, 2007 is when the Cronkies, became part of the Arsenal furniture. It wasn't until 2018 where they took full control, full ownership over the club. That period from 2007 to 2018, the protests, you spend, we spend, net spend, sorry, Mo, it was all like a thing. And, the protests and the frustrations over spending, I was there, doing shows, criticizing the ownership for not spending, not really fully understanding at the time, the whole kind of bigger picture. But the reality is that we've been doing really well lately. We're challenging for titles. We're spending big money. The ownership aren't talked about. They're just not spoken about like they were and I'm not talking about in the way they're spoken about. I'm talking about just being spoken about. We don't talk about the ownership really at all, do we? Think about the last 6 years compared to the 13 that went before that, and the difference in how often the ownership. The most recent time we ever really spoke about them was the Super League stuff, which they held their hands up to. But I mean, I absolutely understand why they did it. If you're looking at Real Madrid, Barcelona, City, United, Chelsea, Atletico Madrid, Juventus, Inter, I think as well. Maybe AC Milan, if memory serves me well. PSG. You're looking at all these other clubs joining and doing this Super League thing, and you're just going to go, nah, we're good. We're not gonna follow suit. You would, right? You just would. So I get it, and I was fuming about it. I was fuming as for the collective decision of all of those clubs for what they did, but I understand why they went in for it, and I'm absolutely delighted the way in which they kind of handled the fallout with that fan forum where Josh just fronted up to everybody and answered all their questions. He made promises, and they've stood by those promises. So I haven't got any complaints anymore, really. You know, it's difficult to have any complaints. That may get proven wrong in the years to come. We may hear things that change our mind. Different actions might come out later on, but the reality is that at the moment, as it stands right now, with the information I have right now, that's where I stand. And until the information changes, I don't see that changing. Right, we're going to be wrapping up in just a second, so let's take on a couple more comments and then we'll go. Officer's got two sons, one supports Arsenal, the other supports Man United. Their room curtains were half Arsenal and half Man United. That's crazy. It says Arsenal did not begin in 2018 with the buyout. I am saying there should be a balance of compromise from the top 1%. Yeah, but what would the compromise be? What would the compromise be? I don't know. I don't know what we're asking for. I saw the Super League promised more meetings and haven't seen them since the jury is still out. I get that. I get that there is a greater level of kind of certainly communication, I think, but not necessarily direct meetings. But I don't think necessarily, and that's not entirely true, because there are groups that have been set up that do meet with club hierarchy members. So that does still happen. It's worth looking into the fan advisory group. Is it the fan advisory group? I think so. Group meeting. Arsenal. Let me see. Arsenal advisory board, supporter engagement, terms of reference 24-25. The purpose of the Arsenal Advisory Board is to provide a forum for representatives from the club supporters groups and fan base to meet with senior representatives from the club and discuss relevant issues relating to the club or football generally. I'm pretty sure I've seen this year where they did do the meeting this year. I think there was last year in 2025. I'm pretty sure there was a meeting where they spoke about a lot of different topics with the fan groups. So, yeah, I still think they have done that. I think it's worth. Maybe you've just missed them. Maybe you've missed the meetings. But yeah, that has happened. But maybe just not as much as what some people would like, I guess. Right. Thank you so much as always for tuning in. Really appreciate your time. I hope you have an absolutely fantastic rest of your day. I'll see you, of course, tomorrow morning, bright and early. It is a press conference day. I believe I just need to double quickly check that it's not at a time, which means that we can't do the show. Let me just check. No, we can do the show. It's all good. So yeah, I'll be with you tomorrow morning, bright and early, 8 a.m. Turn your notifications on, set your alarm clocks. I will see you again very soon. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. And as always, up the Arsenal.